Okay, everyone, you can please be seated now, although I'll ask you to stand again in about 1 minute or 2 minutes' time. So before we begin proceedings today, of course, we have to have the safety briefing. So I will ask the staff of the Hyatt to now play the safety briefing recording.
Welcome to the Hyatt Regency Trinidad. Your safety and well-being during your time with us is our first main priority. Therefore, it is essential and necessary that you are familiar with our emergency evacuation procedures. Should it become necessary to evacuate the hotel, a continuous siren will sound, followed by an audible instruction to evacuate the building. When you hear, "May I have your attention please," over the public announcement system, you should proceed to the exit closest to you and make your way to the muster point, proceeding east along the waterfront towards the western end of the Femme du Chalet, better known as the Breakfast Shed. In the event of an earthquake, do not run out of the building. Stay calm, drop, cover, and hold on. If evacuation is required, please listen for instructions via the hotel's PA system for the earthquake evacuation route and muster point. Associates from Hyatt will assist you with evacuating. Once outside, conduct a head count for your group to ensure that everyone is accounted for. Should you believe someone is missing, notify the Hyatt associate in your area. Do not return to the building for any reason until the fire service has stated it is safe to do so. Thank you, be safe, and have an enjoyable time with us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can I please ask you to stand and in place if you're walking around. Please stand for the national anthem of Trinidad and Tobago. The Honorable, please sit. Can tell I do this a lot. All right. The Honorable Pennelope Beckles Robinson, Minister of Planning and Development in the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps in Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Joanna Kazana, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Trinidad and Tobago, Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin, and also the UN Resident Coordinator in Suriname, distinguished members of the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and I particularly want to single out the representative from the Tobago House of Assembly. It's not every opportunity we have somebody from the Tobago House of Assembly here today, so we're very pleased to have the Tobago House of Assembly present with us. Professor Prakash Prasad, Principal of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and other members of academia in the country. Mr. Kivan Rajaram, Director of PricewaterhouseCoopers, and other members of the Trinidad and Tobago private sector. Dr. Michelle Harris, the PAHO WHO representative in Trinidad and Tobago. Ms. Diane Quales, the Director of the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. Dr. Johnny Musa Bayana, the Director of the International Labour Organization's Decent Work Team and Office in the Caribbean. Javier Neem, the Program Officer in the United Nations Environment Program. I have singled out these people because those are the 4 agencies who are implementing this project, of which the Big Data Forum is a part. Other representatives of the UN and international development partners in Trinidad and Tobago, members of the media, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am Mark Thomas. I'm the Partnerships and Development Finance Officer in the UN Resident Coordinator's Office in Port of Spain. Can I ask the audiovisual team to please put the slide up with the QR code for the brochure? So just one order of business is that this being a data and statistics conference with big data and technology at its heart, the brochure is not on paper, it's online. So please scan the QR code so you can get the digital brochure and the program and people's biographies, the panelists, etc. are all there. All right, so please. My name is, one of the tasks an MC has is to sort of like set the stage and to sort of provide a metaphor. And I will show my age. The metaphor I thought of is from the film 2001: A Space Odyssey. And the film opens with early hominids, or distant ancestors, discovering tools for the first time. And the first tool is a simple, clumsy leg bone from a pig. Yeah? And they show the animals using the tool to break things, to hunt. And then the tool is thrown into the air, and magically, in the blink of an eye, it turns into the tool of the future, a spaceship. And to some extent, this is the journey that we're on, right? We're going from the simple and the clumsy tools of the past to the sophisticated and elegant tools of the future. And the thing we need to decide, to some extent, is where Trinidad and Tobago is along that path. How prepared are we for the tools of the future that are actually the tools of the present? They're already here with us, all right? And just to give you an example of that, this is the 3rd Big Data Forum. It's 4 years following on from the first Big Data Forum in 2020. And you know, some of you in the room may know, I think it's Moore's Law, which is like with every 2 years that passes, technology becomes twice as powerful. That's probably a thing of the past itself. When we first started this Big Data Forum, ChatGPT was not a thing. Bard was not a thing. So technology has moved exponentially rather than linearly, and the pace at which we are required to maintain our own trajectory just to keep pace with everyone else has accelerated markedly. So the objective of this forum is to create an enabling environment for big data and artificial intelligence in Trinidad and Tobago that will enable us to keep pace and hopefully surpass the pace of others to become a leader in big data analytics and artificial intelligence in the region and hopefully the wider world. With that in mind, I will now ask the UN Resident Coordinator, Ms. Joanna Kazana, to come to the stage. We will try our best, in the interest of time, to observe or have all protocols observed. So there's no need for subsequent speakers to go through all the salutations unless they feel it absolutely necessary. But I will invite Ms. Kazana to come to the stage to give her opening remarks for this forum. Ms. Kazana.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Minister Pennelope Beckles, Professor Persad, Mr. Rajaram, distinguished members of the government, academia, public and private sectors, parliamentarians, heads of the United Nations agencies, funds and programs working in Trinidad and Tobago, members of the media, members of the general public, dear data and technology enthusiasts and experts, dear colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good morning on this beautiful day when we are opening the third annual United Nations Big Data Forum in Trinidad and Tobago. It's my great privilege and pleasure to stand before you today as we unite in the spirit of innovation and collaboration to shape the future of big data, artificial intelligence, and new technologies within Trinidad and Tobago and the broader Caribbean community. I take this opportunity to also extend thanks to all of our partners in the government, academia, diplomatic community, business sector, and the public for the overwhelming support and enthusiasm during the previous online editions of the forum. The COVID pandemic didn't stop us. It actually gave us an impulse to do things differently. And that forum started 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, has really created many significant actions on which we can build today and discuss new ideas. This year, we talk about AI and big data, a technological real revolution that is already fundamentally altering the way we live, the way we work, the way we learn, and also the way we communicate or relate to one another. It is just basically the reality of the future is already now, and unfortunately it's unevenly spread. When you look at the world, this is contributing to inequalities as well. The new big data technology and artificial intelligence tools are really present in everyone's everyday experience, and the 2 days here are going to help us to understand to what extent we are already surrounded by AI and big data and how we are using it. So we want to live and we want to learn to live with these new forces and not merely see them as tools, but engage with those as engine of transformation and something that's holding the potential to positively shape and redefine our human experience. I will just recall that the United Nations system has long been at the forefront of advocating for a data revolution, using both the traditional statistics as well as big data, while ensuring data privacy, protection, and ethics. The United Nations Global Pulse, which was created in 2009 to assist the United Nations in leveraging big data and data analysis for sustainable development and humanitarian action, has created innovative Pulse labs, which exist now globally, and they're leveraging anonymized mobile and social media data and other sources of information to support solutions to country development challenges. The United Nations has also led on cybersecurity through various initiatives and projects in line with its goal of creating a sustainable and inclusive global community. A few weeks ago, on October 26 in New York, the United Nations Secretary General has launched the high-level multi-stakeholder advisory body on artificial intelligence. While highlighting the extraordinary advance in the capabilities and use of artificial intelligence through chatbots, voice cloning, image generators, video apps, and more, the Secretary General has also reminded us not only of the opportunities, but also of the dangers of the artificial intelligence. This is why, at the global and national level, the United Nations is creating space for dialogue and generating inputs to the process of development of international norms and rules to govern state behavior in cyberspace, whilst providing valuable resources and collaborations for the capacity building in member states on the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, our digital world is one of divides. In 2002, when governments first recognized the challenge of the digital divide, 1 billion people had access to the internet. Today, 5.3 billion people are digitally connected, yet the divide persists across regions, across gender, income, language, and age groups. Some 89% of European citizens are online, but only 21% of women in low-income countries use the internet. While digitally deliverable services are now almost 2/3 of the global services trade, access to those services is unaffordable in some parts of the world. Fewer than half of the world's countries track digital skills. Data divides are also growing. As data are collected and used in digital applications, they generate huge commercial and social value. While monthly global data traffic is forecast to grow by more than 400% by 2026, activity is concentrated among a few global players which collect and trade data. Many developing countries are at risk of becoming mere providers of raw data while having to pay for the services that their data help to produce. The innovation divide is even more stark. Digital technologies have moved beyond the internet and mobile devices into autonomous, intelligent systems and networks, generative artificial intelligence, virtual and mixed reality, distributed ledger technologies, also known as blockchain, digital currencies, and quantum technologies. The wealth generated by these innovations is highly unequal, dominated by a handful of big platforms, companies, and states. Digital technologies are accelerating the concentration of economic power in an ever smaller group of elites and companies. The combined wealth of technology billionaires stands at $2 trillion, or stood at $2 trillion in 2022, and it is greater than the annual gross domestic product of more than half of the G20 economies. So these are just the facts, and it only demonstrates that the inequality is rising also due to technological advance, or despite technological advancement. Behind these divides is a massive governance gap. New technologies are lacking sometimes even basic guardrails. It is apparently harder to bring to a market a soft toy for the children than an AI chatbot. Because such digital technologies are privately developed, governments are constantly lagging behind in regulating them in the public interest. As a result of decades of underinvestment in state capacities, public institutions in most countries are ill-equipped to assess and respond to digital challenges. Very few can compete with private sector to harness the talent and to offer incentives to digitally skilled people to work in the public sector. Public administrations are being hollowed out at the time when they need that kind of quality and skills the most. All these problems are new and complex, and this is why in the run-up to the United Nations Summit of the Future that will take place in 2024, the UN is proposing the development of a global digital compact that would set out principles and objectives and also actions to advance an open, a free, secure, and human-centered digital future, one that is anchored in universal human rights and that enables the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. And we see governments taking very active steps in this direction. Earlier this month, the first ever AI Safety Summit was held by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and ended by adopting a joint declaration signed by governments of all 27 countries participating in the summit, including the UK, the US, China and India, Indonesia, Rwanda, Nigeria, European Union, to name just a few. Unfortunately, there were no participants from Latin America, there were no participants from the South America, 27 nations. It kind of shows where the priorities, what their priorities are and which countries are leading the conversation on AI. And the conversation about AI and big data in the Caribbean is also very dynamic, just perhaps less visible on the global stage. This is why, over the next 2 days here, we are going to give the floor to local experts from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean region to build upon the worldwide discourse, developing a Caribbean narrative and contributing to the global movement on big data and artificial intelligence. Bringing it back to the work of the UN, I just want to highlight that outcome 3 of the multi-country sustainable development cooperation framework in this region stipulates that by 2026, national governments and regional institutions will use relevant data and information in design and adopting laws and policies to eliminate discrimination, addressing structural inequalities, and ensuring the advancement of those at risk of being left behind. We are trying to help governments to harness the power of data in the service of sustainable development. The UN cooperation on the issue of data is broad, and it addresses both the capacity to collect data as well as data availability, robustness, transparency, and dissemination, which continue to be common challenges to measuring progress in the region. We are partnering very closely with Ministry of Planning and Development, and I want to use this as an opportunity to really thank Minister Beckles for her leadership on the data issue and for bringing us together on a regular basis to really challenge institutions, organizations, systems, and the habits of not sharing information in order to share it, in order to make it transparent, in order to make it work for all of us. The UN is also a platform where governments of the region meet and discuss their progress in data management. Just 2 weeks ago, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, represented here by Director Corrales, hosted a seminar on positioning the Caribbean region in the knowledge economy. The Big Data Forum today is going to take this conversation further as we examine further how artificial intelligence and technology can support Trinidad and Tobago's data ecosystem development. And before we give the floor to the technological gurus, ladies and gentlemen, I want to underline one important dimension of data revolution, and that is the full and real participation of the youth. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Big Data Forum the girls and boys from the schools of Trinidad and Tobago, and tomorrow we will celebrate 20 secondary schools that have participated in an interactive educational activity leading up to today's event. And I must say, their enthusiasm, their creativity, their knowledge of those technological tools, and really ingenuity showcase their incredible technological capacities on which we can only build. The development progress in any country over the last, let's say, 50 years has been quite impressive, but no country is living in isolation, and the world is not standing still. And as I always say, the competition is fierce. That's why we are doing this for the development of Trinidad and Tobago. That's why we want to make this contribution to the conversation how data and technologies can work hand in hand with policies that are trying to create equal opportunities for everyone. So together, let's embark on charting a path where innovations thrive, ethics lead, and the poorest and most vulnerable members of the society benefit. I really look forward to our fruitful discussion and the many key action items that will emerge at the end of the 2 days of this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great meeting, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, R.C. Kazana. To the AV guys, can you please put up the QR code again just for people who may come in a bit late? Excellent. So just for those who came in while the speech was going on, the brochure and the program for the conference is all digital, all online, so please use the QR code and access the brochure. Excellent. I think R.C. Kazana captured well some of the challenges and opportunities that are ahead of us. Yes, the challenges of being left behind, and she mentioned the region not keeping pace with the rest of the world. But at the same time, what all the things that big data and artificial intelligence can unlock, the potential that it can unlock for us as a society, and how we can become far better for it. She also mentioned the value of big data and artificial intelligence to planning. So it's a nice segue to introduce our keynote speaker, the Honorable Pennelope Beckles. Minister Beckles is the Minister of Planning and Development in Trinidad and Tobago, and a friend of the UN. She was a former permanent representative of the UN in New York. She has been a parliamentary representative since 1995. In fact, I think for as long as I have been a sentient being, keeping in... I have known Minister Beckles in some... Not personally, but you know, everybody in Trinidad and Tobago knows Minister Beckles. I think everybody... It feels even strange addressing her as Minister Beckles. I think everybody calls her Penny. She has been in various portfolios, including Minister of Social Development, the Minister of Culture and Tourism, the Minister of Public Utilities and the Environment. And she is a lawyer by profession. She graduated with honors from the University of the West Indies. I will now ask Minister Beckles to please take the stage to give us the keynote address.
Good morning, everyone. So this is supposed to be one of the warm countries, you know. So can I say again, good morning, everyone? Oh, what you do is you actually help me to be a little more comfortable, right? So I'm going to take my instructions from Mark by not going through the entire list. But let me, of course, acknowledge Joanna Kazana, United Nations resident coordinator, and the wider UN family, because I know that I've looked around the room and I've seen, of course, my sister Diane, who's sitting right next to me, and many other persons who are here represented the United Nations. Professor Prakash Prasad, principal of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as all other persons here from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Kevin Rajaram, Director of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Mr. Desmond Perry, statistician of the Tobago House of Assembly. Community of data scientists, AI practitioners, and robotics developers. I really want to share with you that I think I would have preferred to be sitting and listening, because this is not one of the areas for which I profess to be an expert, but what I would say is one of the probably most interesting areas, I guess, for all of us now. And sometimes we need to make it as simple as we could think. I remember going into a restaurant in New York, and asking for, for them to send the menu. And they said it's right on the table. And I'm saying, but I'm not seeing it on the table. That was a couple of years ago. So the lady came back, yes, this is it on the table, the QR code, right? Right, Mr. Young? And that was a few years ago. But it kind of brings it home about very simple things that, you could ignore. And in a real sense, for a country like Trinidad and Tobago, it really also has to do with the extent to which people are really technologically literate. Because sometimes we assume some of us are now so advanced that you cannot think about, why do you have to go to the bank? Why do you have to go to any shop to buy anything? Because everything has changed with artificial intelligence. But in a sense, I would share with you, in another life, being a president of Eastern Credit Union, I recall recently I went and there was an old lady there, and I noticed her for a little while. And then I remembered another experience similar to that in Arima. I went to the bank to take out some cash from the ATM, and an old lady came to me and said, well, Penny, as Mark said, I cannot use the machine. And I went in 3 times, and they said to me, just go in and put in your number. And she said, well, I have it written down here, and I haven't taken out money for 6 months, and I walked from Pinto to Arima. If you know where Pinto is, it would have taken at least 20 minutes, but she had no money to take the taxi. Short story, she didn't know how to enter the PIN. And some of us can't conceive that there are people who don't know how to enter the PIN. And she didn't want her children to know how much money she had. So she basically trusted me, and I did it once, twice, 3 times. And she didn't find the little piece of paper that she had in this bag that she took out with the number. Was just amazing. So, I guess for me, it is how we are able later on to translate all of this to the people at all levels, to make it relevant, and that's the only way I think that we're going to move forward. But this is a big start. So I wanted to share that with you, as I give my remarks now. So I feel both as a minister, but also as a student, because the information that would be shared here today is obviously going to help me in terms of my own decision-making, in terms of the Ministry of Planning and Development. So let me really congratulate Joanna and the entire United Nations system for the continued success of this Big Data Forum. I want to emphasize that everything we do is guided by the mantra that we adopted at the United Nations, that is, leave no one behind. And what this means is that the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, through focus on data and innovation, is determined to follow up on the commitments we have made to citizens in our National Development Strategy Vision 2030 via Theme 1, which is putting people first, nurturing our greatest asset, Theme 2, delivering good governance and service excellence, and Theme 4, building globally competitive businesses, and through other policies and commitments to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to self-actualize and achieve their utmost potential. In other words, the goal is to create an environment of prosperity. So today's topic, artificial intelligence, big data, and the future of smart society, the reality of advanced big data analytics, artificial intelligence, and planning for the future, presents to us the key to creating this environment of prosperity. The integration of advancing big data analytics and artificial intelligence into our future planning is necessary for guaranteeing a continued thrust for more efficient and transparent government services, as well as obtaining solutions to localized problems, especially solutions in line with Trinidad and Tobago National Development Strategy and Global Sustainable Development Goals. One pillar in this movement is the influence on the economy, and that is at both the macro as well as at the micro levels. And there is no doubt that the advancement of a robust, dependable digital economy presents significant opportunities for both developing and developed countries. Digital advancements provide platforms to support and intensify new streams of innovative undertakings and have the potential to assist small as well as medium enterprises in addressing challenges that are associated with unemployment while creating trading opportunities, stimulating green development, and increasing the overall standard of living for the citizens of the Caribbean region. The prospects of increased economic activity and growth are highlighted in the 2021 report of the Inter-American Center of Tax Administrators, which estimated that revenues of the digital economy in Latin America and the Caribbean would grow by 28% annually from 2021, reaching a value of $359.4 billion US dollars, equivalent to 8% of the regional GDP compared to 11.2% of the GDP for countries of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD. What these estimates indicate is that the digital economy has become increasingly important in the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean, with the region accounting for approximately 3.4% of global revenues from the digital economy in 2021. And these figures point to the tremendous financial opportunities for digital pursuits, of which artificial intelligence is fast becoming the core pillar. However, UNESCO, through its AI in the Caribbean initiative, laments that many Caribbean small island developing states, as Joanna said, have not yet developed strategies and national policies to manage the impact of AI on their societies. So how can we take advantage of any windfall associated with the digital economy and AI? Well, through the Caribbean AI initiative, there are grounds for optimism around the development of regional and national AI strategies, as it aims, of course, to raise awareness, to inform, to engage, to have discourse, to deal with the issue of capacity building, while sharing and gathering expertise from various stakeholders and to identify the way forward. The government of Trinidad and Tobago supports this initiative because we believe that, aided by artificial intelligence, our economies can benefit from reduced human error, AI-enabled models, which can also help to save time and other valuable resources to support the acquisition of accurate and efficient results in the public and private sector. Regionally, artificial intelligence applications have value addressing sustainability challenges, promoting social good, enhancing healthcare, streamlining logistics sector, assisting in environmental management, and of course, supporting education. So while such economic efforts help with the attainment of SDG 8, which is decent work and economic growth, SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, artificial intelligence can revolutionize governance, opportunities, and overall lives for our citizens when seriously supported by complementary strategies and national policies. According to the United Nations, Trinidad and Tobago is poised to capitalize on the benefits of the digital sector owing to our widespread mobile phone usage. There were 1.08 million internet users in Trinidad and Tobago, and that was at January 2020, with the number of internet users in Trinidad and Tobago increasing by 0.3% between 2019 and 2020. Internet penetration in Trinidad and Tobago also stood at 77% in 2020. During the same period, mobile connections stood at 1.89 million. In essence, we have some of the key tools and basis for the establishment of a digital economy. The next step is taking the leap into a realm of creating indigenous content, products, and services, not only for our region, but that of the world. In Trinidad and Tobago, we are already beginning to take that leap with a partnership between the government and the Inter-American Development Bank for Connected Arima Smart City project, which is but the initial phase of a wider national digitization transformation trust. Connected Arima is also where the first time in Trinidad and Tobago, well-being and wellness meet big data with one patient, one record initiative, and this takes place at the Arima Hospital. This initiative introduces electronic health records of EHRs to capture and consolidate all the data about each patient treated at the hospital, demographic information, medical history, medications, immunization history, allergies, test results, appointments, and of course the whole progress notes and the more, all captured electronically, replacing handwritten files that can be bulky, misplaced, difficult to read and share, and uncomfortable to carry around. EHRs allow for analysis of patient records for data that can point to communal health trends, thereby informing structured responses in public health and public health education. Connected Arima includes the provision of infrastructure such as high-speed Wi-Fi, smart poles, and with built-in sensors for atmospheric quality, noise, temperature, traffic, and more. The data realized from these smart pole sensors have a multiplicity of applications from security, traffic management, municipal authorities, planning, and of course, so responding to situations real time. Obviously, investment in infrastructure has to be supported by planned maintenance, and we know that sometimes that is not one of our strengths. But of course, it's absolutely important, and on a nationwide scale, the implementation of smart nation infrastructure portends a wealth of data for analysis and utility to provide numerous platforms and solutions for building prosperity in every facet of endeavor. AI goes hand in hand with big data because of its use of algorithms to extract relevant data for analysis from huge volumes at rapid rates. Data and analytics are already being used by business to predict exactly what customers want. In virtually every area of the economy, big data analysis offers valuable insights that can be applied to boost productivity. In tourism, for example, descriptive analytics of real-time and historical customer data can help reduce costs and improve forecasting accuracy of hotel occupancy. In the area of transportation, traffic grids, congestion, and commuter data can provide authorities with insights to designing solutions that improve traffic flow and reduce man-hours lost by traffic, including identifying just by an analysis of patterns of mobile phones, geographical positions, places where the road surface needs to be repaired. Big data applications are vital for local government reform as well as for municipal authorities. Cities and regional governments can manage costs, optimize services, and intelligently manage infrastructure while building performance and management frameworks that deliver value to our respective communities. In the social services sector, governments can detect fraud and maximize revenue collection through optimized and cost-effective customer contact programs with integrated predictive analytics in tax as well as in the welfare sector. Through sophisticated algorithms, dubious transactions can be immediately tracked, providing insight into citizen financial behavior and mitigating fraud. In the vein of transparency, this can also alert to fraudulent transactions occurring within organizations. We can also improve welfare initiative through sentiment analysis, where it is possible to track national sentiments and develop new services and initiatives according to citizens' needs. Big data and AI can assist with responses to national security threats, both internal and external, through a combination of visual and digital surveillance and analysis of digital intelligence to deploy assets to deter criminal activity and activities by bad actors that can pose physical as well as digital threats to our nations. In the health sector, through historical data along with current mobility patterns discerned from analysis of mobile telephone metadata, governments can understand a disease outbreak and take measures to control it while being able to initiate targeted wellness programs and targeting, of course, specific groups in the country. So from the examples I have outlined, big data analysis can give us insights that can and will have a positive impact on our national development agenda. It goes without saying that government is giving attention to this as a matter of urgency and with equal intention to another priority issue, the safety of our citizens and their data. Trinidad and Tobago's Data Protection Act, which was partially proclaimed in 2011, is a critical part of modernizing government services and improving the economy, among other things, through big data and artificial intelligence. While we understand that data can be instrumental to growth and national development, we are also cognizant that there are negatives when data is mishandled or not effectively managed. Data protection is essential for economic development because effective data protection laws and regulations advance citizens' trust in digital tools and electronic systems through the integration of rights and protection against the misuse of their personal data. When considering this, we must require organizations to use data in a fair, transparent, and as well as accountable manner. This is fundamental for government's drives towards effective data rights and protection of our citizens. So, in our trust to make data and artificial intelligence integration the standard for how we operate, we are ensuring that data laws and regulations must be well designed, adapted to the national context, consider existing resource restraints, and have the independence and teeth necessary, and must have mechanisms to effectively, consistently be enforced. I want to close by saying that we all agree that artificial intelligence is no longer a staple of books by Arthur Clarke, Isaac Asimov, and other famous sci-fi authors, nor is it limited to the TV movie screens and such as, and I'll probably do something that Mark did when he said that based on what I mentioned, you'll probably try and figure out my age. So, so that is those of you who are familiar with Star Trek, and I'm not talking about the 2001 Space Odyssey, but the original Star Trek, as well as Lost in Space. I think those are the two most familiar. So based on those who are laughing, and I think you are not laughing, but you know Lost in Space and Star Trek, right? Good. Right, so we are around the same age, right? So we know that the future is now, and the tools to enhance this future and provide opportunities are being built, growing, and evolving, even as we sit here today. There is nothing stopping us from being a part of the revolution. In fact, we must be part of it or risk being left behind. So today's forum is an opportune moment to reflect, dream, be inspired, and figure out what we need to do to be part of the big data and the AI drive to ensure the time that we have now is not only the best for us today, but also provides a platform for which our future generation can leap to success. I thank you all for the time, and I wish you all the best for the duration of this big data forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for underscoring Trinidad and Tobago government's commitment to digitalization and to creating the enabling environment for big data and artificial intelligence that this conference seeks to catalyze, right, to set in motion. A point of order, there will be, if you have the brochure, you'd know that the forum is broken up into panel sessions. The panelists will be invited to give their opinions, and they will be asked questions. Questions can also come from the floor, and there will be roaming microphones for people in the audience to ask questions of the panelists, should you have a question that you'd like to ask. I would now like to invite the panelists one by one to come to the stage. This session will be moderated by the resident coordinator for the United Nations in Trinidad and Tobago, Ms. Joanna Kazana. Ms. Kazana is not just the resident coordinator for Trinidad and Tobago, but also for Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin, and Suriname. She was also the UN resident coordinator in Belarus for 5 years. She was the UNDP Division Chief and in the Regional Bureau for European Commonwealth of Independent States and the Caucasus. The UNDP Deputy Resident Representative in Ukraine. And R.C. Kazana holds a Master of Arts in Economics and International Relations from the SGH Warsaw School of Economics. Joanna will moderate the session. Also in the session, we have the Honorable Minister, Pennelope Beckles, who I've introduced already and who I think needs no introduction. The other panelists will be Professor Prakash Prasad, the Principal of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Professor Prasad serves as I mentioned, the President and Principal of the University of Trinidad and Tobago. He's a former Senator and a Senate Majority Leader in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, Minority Leader. Professor Prasad also served as a member of the National ICT Committee, housed in the former Ministry of Science and Technology. He is a former chairman of the National Institute for Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, NIHURST. Professor Prasad pioneered research in AI and robotics at the University of the West Indies and continues to do so at UTT. He has successfully supervised 10 PhD students in areas of AI, robotics, and entrepreneurship. Professor Prasad. And our last, and by no means least panelist today is Kevin Rajaram, the director at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Kivan, I'm pronouncing your name wrong, has been working in data as a data professional for more than a decade. He has worked at major companies throughout the Caribbean region and currently serves as the Director of Data Services at PwC. He has graduated from the University of the West Indies with a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics with honors, and he also holds a Master of Science in Statistics with a distinction. He is currently pursuing his PhD in computer science at UWI, and he is also a certified data management professional with the International Data Management Association. So I'll now invite the moderator and the panelists to take to the stage so we can begin the first session in today's forum, which is entitled Artificial Intelligence, Big Data, and the Future Smart Society. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the moderator and panelists.
We are running up behind time. Do you think we can go on?
I'm good.
Where's the other? Yeah.
How are you? Yeah, same here.
So thank you very much. First of all, thanks to Minister Beckles for the inspiring opening keynote address, pointing out to us what a fantastic opportunity we are facing with big data and the artificial intelligence, offering new opportunities for very quick access to information for decision making, but also everyday life as we don't even know how quickly those technologies are becoming available. In the panel discussion today, actually my first question is going to be to Professor Prasad about how should the societies prepare for the future landscape which will be shaped by artificial intelligence and big data. We know that technologies are moving very, very fast. Oftentimes, technologies are even surprising those who are developing those technologies. We know about how AI is capable of solving the problems that humans were not able to solve. And we know also how long it takes to actually comprehend how we are going to use those advancements in the technology. The tech industry, we just had over the weekend the whole battle in open AI, which is the source of a lot of very, including ChatGPTs created by OpenAI as a free resource for all of us. They replaced their CEO. Everybody is wondering what happened and why the CEO was replaced. And there's a lot of speculation that it's about safety and security of AI. How do societies prepare? How do we all, first of all, absorb and understand what's going on, but also what should we be vigilant for and careful about when it comes to new technologies? Professor Prasad.
Thank you. Let me probably set the parameters by saying I will speak about the probable as opposed to the possible.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind where we are and what our capabilities are presently. I think that is something we should look at and be mindful of. Let me also say that thankfully that AI has no imagination, so that we are safe for the time being. And at least I've been working in robotics and AI for many, many years, and I think it's still in the realm of science fiction that robots are going to run around and kill people. So I think we are safe as far as that is concerned. There may be industrial accidents, yes, right? But I want to answer the question in the context that I'm an engineer. I've been working, like I say, on AI and robotics, and implicit in AI would be big data. So, and also from the mandate of UTT and for what the Honorable Minister says about impact on the regional, local and regional environment. So I want to answer it in terms of that, those parameters. That we have been working, like I say, in offline AI systems for a long while. Since the 1990s, using first neural networks, and then we focus on fuzzy logic. And there's nothing fuzzy about fuzzy logic. It's just very clear. It's in our phones, it's in our washing machines, it's in our video cameras, etc. So we need for it to impact on us, for us to develop the society, and like I said, and make the environment safer also. So let me focus on the environment part and safety. We did look at a furnace, a glass furnace and a cement furnace. I don't want to call the companies' names. But those are different, difficult environments, dangerous environments to work in. We did go through the process of, analyzing all the data to come up with offline decision systems based on fuzzy logic, which is AI, to assist in running the plants safely and smoothly and efficiently for impact. I also haven't said about probability. Then how does it go forward? Having done these things, we have done it. In fact, we looked at a major utility here in scheduling. And Minister has been politically neutral and correct, that some of these issues we have to deal with. So we looked at it. And one of some issues we face in Trinidad, I'll just say it quickly, is one, that data. We don't have accurate data. There's an old saying, garbage in, garbage out. So right now in Trinidad, a lot of the industrial data or data available is not really quite accurate. And to get useful results, we need that. That is something that we have to look at. The other thing, in terms of how far we are behind, in terms of what is possible and elsewhere, that despite the fact that we have trained students, including PhD graduates, a variety of things on how to use AI and in industrial problems, to get it to be applied to impact.
Thank you very
It hasn't been so far. And this is something that we need to look at. How do we translate, from university, new technologies, emerging technologies? When we train people, we do research, how do we apply it locally for impact? So I will stop there.
Thank you very much, Professor. So we'll come back to the Minister, because these are also questions of not the big data, but the small data sometimes, yes? You need small data in order to be able to build on it. So the question to the Minister is, one, if we can go back also to those issues that were discussed during the latest forum of ECLAC about what governments are doing to improve the use of data and build statistical capacities. But before we get into that, I also wanted to perhaps share that given the pace of the technological change, what challenges do you foresee in the widespread utilization of AI and big data in planning for the future? The Ministry of Planning is dedicated to foreseeing what is coming in the future, using data, but also using the new technologies for planning. What are some of the possible effective strategies to mitigate these risks at the national level when it comes to the use of AI, when it comes to the use of big data, but also what are the risks of not having the small data and the basic statistics?
Thank you very much. Okay, so let me say that I think the first issue really has to do with a major concern, I think, of everyone, which is the issue of privacy. Privacy, data privacy, data security, and regulations. How do we put in place the appropriate regulations to address data protection? The other question really is that of data obsolescence, because we're realizing that technology is changing so swiftly. I was thinking a while ago that if some of us in this room shared with our children or grandchildren what a telephone looked like maybe 40 years ago, and they'll try to figure out what exactly that is when you had to take one of your fingers and make a turn in order to numbers. But now it's changing. I mean, if you think of an iPhone every year, it's different, any other of the phones. So sometimes you can't recognize the phone that you had 25 years ago, and of course they're doing so many different things. So you can be in various ministries and realize that it's a question where the technology is just simply changing, and some of the challenges, of course, is the cost to change those things. You go in some ministries and some people are still using computers that 20 years ago, if sometimes even older than that. So when we talk even about small or big data, it's really taking a policy decision to make the kind of changes that allows us to collect the data to influence the policy decisions that we have to make. So the whole issue of technology infrastructure and changing technological landscape is important. The other thing has to do with the whole issue of inequality as it relates to access to technology, so that a policy as it relates to national digital inclusion is important, and just the recognition that even what the example I gave a while ago about whether or not people understand the use of basic equipment, because we, in a sense, we believe, those of us who are doing it almost as a matter of course every day, that it is going on all over the country. So again, the data collection, and those who simply cannot afford it. We saw what happened during COVID, that in some communities where you didn't even have Wi-Fi access, for example, now that you have so many children being left behind. So some parents have the challenge where a student may have been, let us say, in a Form 3 or was due to do common entrance, and simply over that period, 2020 to 2022, never actually were able to purchase a device, have access to a device, or even have parents that were able to teach them how to use the device. And the last one is probably the issue of having to use external providers, and that opportunity, I think, to develop our own indigenous technological solutions, and finally, building a skilled workforce. It's here on us. We don't have to wait anymore. So how do we ensure that we develop that capacity? We talk about it in almost every area, small island developing states, but it's an absolute must.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Minister. We heard a lot about the issues around privacy and around data protection. also about data literacy, but we also heard about the investment that's needed in keeping up with the technologies. Privately and personally, we know how much it costs to keep with, the whole family online using the up-to-date technologies. But also I have seen how much the institutions have to mobilize in terms of capital to invest. We just recently had a very good meeting with the Minister of Education of Trinidad and Tobago, who was telling us about the reform in terms of the digitalization of the system and the realization that this is not just one-time investment, but the upkeep of the technologies, how much it costs, and how much is required in terms of literacy also inside the schools of how the technologies should be used and should be kept up is a huge investment and requires real resources to keep up with the new developments. So I'm now going to turn to PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I'd like to now give the floor to, sorry, my notes are disappearing, Kevin, who is going to tell us about what PricewaterhouseCoopers is doing with AI. What is the approach of your company to sort of employing this new opportunity in the interest of economy, but also in the interest of society? What do you need other institutions to be doing on the outside of the private sector? How governments, how international organizations, how individuals can prepare for the revolution? And also if you can address the subject of jobs and how AI and new technologies are already shaping the workforce of the present, not to mention the workers of the future.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So in terms of what PwC and I think a lot of companies that are similar in terms of being proactive in the use of artificial intelligence, big data, we are just trying to understand the landscape and its applicability. I think because it's rapidly evolving, we don't want to remain dormant and avoid it. It's not an avoidable topic. I think we've all recognized that AI is something that we have sort of already integrated by default, so through the use of Gen AI. We heard Professor Passar talk about like fuzzy logic and these sorts of things for solving problems that exist. So when we solve problems for clients, we aren't trying to shy away from the inclusion of these sorts of things, right? From these sorts of possibilities that we can use technology to solve these problems for businesses. The issue is, and I guess it's one of trust. It's the sharing of data, right? Mm-hmm. It's a virtuous circle, as we all know. The more data we have, the further we can go with AI, and AI in turn creates this generation of what we've now come to agree on the terminology as big data. So it's a virtuous circle. And again, that issue of not having trust and interoperability, so to speak, between organizations to solve problems, it's causing a bottleneck. So I think one of the, and to answer one of the questions that you just pointed at the end, which was, what can we as organizations do, even amongst government and private sector, public sector, it's just allowing for more open source data. Obviously, at the heart of it, we need to have respect anonymization, right? Keeping data privacy regulations intact. But at the same time, for any significant advancements to be made, we need to be able to collect those data so that it can do things like Minister Beckles said, shape policies, solve said problems, both at the national and subnational level. So I think this is one of the steps that we as, all members of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider region need to adopt. You mentioned it in your introduction that we have these international big players that share data amongst themselves, and from their perspective, it's a highly lucrative business. But we also have the opportunity to solve problems, right? Problems that that have affected the disenfranchised, the vulnerable, those of lower socioeconomic status. We can't leave them behind, just by solving problems for those who have access and means, right? So the problems that we do solve, it needs to bring everyone along, right? Have inclusivity in it as well. And I think this is the approach that PwC has taken. We try to take that lens of using AI for inclusivity. And at the heart of it, and anytime I get the opportunity to speak about these things, yes, we have processes, yes, we have technology, but at the heart of it, at the core of it, is people that drive these things. And so it's just making sure that everyone is also included. And just to add to something else that Minister Beckles had said, it's really ensuring that this thing is it's long-lived. There's a longevity to it. It's not just a hype train. We go and invest in all the technologies and do all the things that are modern and we've seen big international players doing, but that we also have the opportunity to continuously grow it and innovate in it as well and truly differentiate the Caribbean. We can't lift and shift models from North America and Europe, for example, because it's not going to be a one-size-hat-fits-all in the Caribbean territory. So we need to really understand our local landscape and adopt these things, yes, but have the vision that we can truly make it our own. So I believe these are some of the things that we have been doing, and these are some of the things that both government and private companies should be looking into as we progress into the era or the revolution of AI.
Thanks very much. So as we kind of move to the concrete things that could be done, first of all, obviously, popularization of the use of big data and educating ourselves also. What are the sources of information that could be sort of more or delivered in an automated fashion? What else can be done also at the Caribbean level for, as you say, more interoperability, more open source development of data and information? How to do it and how to move it forward? From the UN side, what we can do is to create fora, bring people together, organize processes in order to bring the government, private sector, scientists around the same table. But what specific actions do you think others could be taking, or your own company and private sector in general could be taking to take it forward? And I will ask the same question each of the panelists. What are the concrete actions that we should be supporting moving forward?
Sure. So the first one that I will itemize would be training and upskilling. I think at the core of it, we definitely have the brain power within Trinidad to do it. I think it's just where we pointed toward. So definitely training and upskilling. And this can start as early as a secondary school. It's debatable for primary school, but definitely at the secondary school level, all the way down to tenured professionals. They should have some degree and understanding of technology and AI. And I think this also promotes the ability for things like consumer privacy acts and data privacy acts. If people are informed what they are signing their information away to, they'll have a greater appreciation of how it can be used for the benefit of it, right? There's also the dark side of that where it can be misused, but being optimistic, using those things for the right things through training and upskilling. The other thing I would also say, and one of the most popular data platforms in the world right now, Kaggle, they publicize open source problems, right? And they share anonymized data. Sometimes it's de-anonymized data, anonymized data. And they put this out there so that people can solve these problems, and often through, whether it be monetary compensation or just acknowledgement for kudos for solving real problems that organizations and even private institutions face. All in the interest of solving a problem. And I think if we were to do something like that on the local and regional level, I think everyone stands to benefit, because now we give people who have been upskilled and trained the opportunity to solve real world problems, and then we have organizations that benefit from the solution of these solutions being put forward by potential persons participating, right? So, just open source problems and through the sharing of data. So I think those are two incredibly useful actual actions that we can start doing. And then there's also things that, and I see Professor Hussein at the front here, like initiatives that TT Lab advocate for through, actually using things like graduate students to embed into organizations to solve problems. It actually is quite useful. And I think a lot of organizations now have recognized that, and so they do internships and so on, because we have the ability to develop our talent pool to solve these problems. And, it solves that problem of, hiring talent and retaining talent, and then also keeping that brain drain away, because, with the lack of opportunities, people go abroad seeking these AI opportunities in first world countries, in developed countries, because they think that, the problems there, besides being pertinent and very similar to the regional, Caribbean regional level, they get the opportunity to actually solve them. And I think that is one of the things that, we kind of lack. We have the talent, but we don't invest in solving problems that the talent pool recognizes as viable for them. So, it creates that opportunity to retain talent within the Caribbean environment. So those are some of the ones that I think are quite pertinent to us.
Thank you very much. Very exciting ideas. You mentioned training and upscaling, and I think also it deals with a lot of, the role that could be played by the public institutions, by the schools, the school system that needs to be really focusing on the technologies as one of the mainstream subjects that young people need for the development in whatever direction they want to go, not only in the technological direction, but in medicine, in chemistry, in science, in literature, the processing of every piece of statistics or data or even any material can be helped with technologies. I'll ask the same question to Minister Beckles. What are the actions that are needed, perhaps from the government perspective, to create space, harmonious space for this data ecosystem?
Okay, so I think Mr. Rajaram gave some suggestions that I would want to agree with, so I don't want to repeat them, but I would start with one of the things he mentioned in his earlier statement, which is the issue of collaboration with private sector, government. Well, of course, we are there even as today with the UN bodies, but I think greater collaboration is necessary with the private sector. I also believe that a sort of a sensitive area, which is culture change, because it's not just a question of collection of data, it's interpretation of data, it's sharing of data, because one of the things I have found, you think about doing an analysis or doing some data collection, and in truth and in fact, somebody has actually done it, but they don't want to share, the issue Mr. Rajam spoke about, the issue of trust. Some of these things are very costly, and some persons simply don't want to share for different reasons. So that collaboration and that change, and that is linked, I think, not just to service delivery, but a recognition that the entire country moves forward if it is we understand the importance of data collection that helps certainly ministries like the Ministry of Planning and Development, as well as other ministries, to make better decisions and better policies. So how do we address those issues? Because we're going to various ministries, we're going to various organizations, and that data collection can, as I said, make a big difference in terms of how we serve the public, and I think that's very critical. The last one again is the issue of capacity building. How do we address that? How do we even capitalize on the fact that we do have the private sector, we do have UN bodies, we do have regional bodies, we do have other governments that are more or less going through some of the same challenges that we are going through. So how we ensure that we don't reinvent the wheel? How do we collaborate? And how do we share information a lot more so that we make the right decisions and the right policies?
And if I may add one more question, which is kind of ad hoc, but out of curiosity, how do governments discuss the issue of who should be the focal point inside the state institutions? This is very complex, and this issue came up even in the context of that AI summit, AI safety summit in the UK. A lot of governments didn't send a delegation because there was no one focal point for big data or AI. How do we figure that out?
Well, I mean, I talked a bit about culture change. and the recognition of the fact that this is for the benefit of your country, your region, the world. So I made the point a while ago that there are some institutions that have developed expertise. So let's say, for example, we have the University of Trinidad, you have University of the West Indies. They are already doing, based on what Professor said, the research is there. It's, in some instances, yes, there are areas that we have not done the research in. We may not have the expertise. But what is important is that how do we accept, for example, you have UN bodies that are here, you have ECLAC, UNDP, you have IOM, there are existing institutions that have the expertise that we can tap in, but we need to discuss that sometimes as a society, we're not always willing to share, and we're not always willing sometimes even to access information, but then sometimes there is also the issue of being able as well to access information.
Thank you very much. Professor Prakash, for you from the vantage point of the academia, what are the key actions that would be useful in Trinidad and Tobago or the broader Caribbean region to organize the society and institutions in such a way that will be easier to absorb those new technologies?
I think in terms of, let's start with the society and in terms of educational institutions first. And it's going to impact on business. So for instance, you have ERP systems, your databases, a lot of data in there, but each is run by a special company, whether it's Oracle, whoever. They will not be willing to share. So I want to suggest something controversial, that maybe governments in the country or the region should say, look, that we are not as rich as you are, but can we have licenses not for individual institutions, but for the country? I'll end quickly by giving an example. So for instance, we have student information systems. We have a lot of universities in Trinidad. Each would have a different one. We can't share data because we have to buy that's suitable for us, the cost. So if, for instance, that the government says, hey, banner, all banner licenses in Trinidad should fall under the government. Now that goes against capitalism, I believe, but it goes in line with national development, with cost. And this is something that we can look at. And I think also we have to face the reality that open source is easy, but we have issues with security, with validity, etc. And that's the strong point, and I'm not against capitalism, but that's the strong point of the tech companies. That is why they have $2 trillion worth. They use it to their advantage. So I think there must be some sort of partnership discussion with them. How do we deal with it? A win-win situation for both sides.
Thank you. We are being asked to wrap it up. I think it was a very, very interesting and dynamic first panel of the meeting, and thank you very much for reflecting on the complexity, but also being very concrete and proposing specific actions that can be taken forward. I want to thank you very much, all of the panelists and the audience, for engaging also by being very focused. So thanks, and round of applause to our speakers. And we will now proceed.
So before you leave the stage, this is the time for photo opportunities. So I'll first ask the panelists here to stand for the photographers to take images with the beautiful backdrop, preferably with Ms. Kazana standing next to Minister Beckles. Yeah, you can stand in the middle. So I think it was wonderful to have the first panel of the day be with all the sectors that we need to make this thing happen. We have the government, of course. We have academia and civil society represented by Professor. We have private sector represented by Pricewaterhouse, and we have the development partners represented by the RC. We will now proceed to the ceremonial opening of the forum with the ribbon cutting, which will occur at the first booth. My colleagues will direct the minister and Ms. Kazana to the ribbon area where you can ceremonially cut the ribbon, and the photographers can also take pictures there as well. For everyone else, we're going to take a 20-minute break. There is breakfast available for you. Avail yourself of breakfast. Also, we're very fortunate to have multiple companies here today exhibiting their wares and their services. Please avail yourselves of the opportunity presented by having those companies here. Your homework is to create this network that we want to build, right? If you're only talking to the people that you've spoken to before, this forum is a failure, right? So your homework is to speak to strangers, interact with one another, build the community that we need to build to make this thing happen. If I see Kenithia talking to P.S. Hines, I'm going to get vexed. All right? You're to speak to strangers. All right? Everyone, 20-minute break, ceremonial opening, additional pictures, breakfast, and booths.